Okay, let's do some example problems of the homework. I'm going to go through this quickly, but you might be able to get the idea. Okay, so here I just made up some data. I don't even know what the results will be, but here are the average times it takes to walk from the chapel to Euler 118. Freshmen took that many seconds, sophomores took that many seconds, and so forth. And they might have boyfriends or girlfriends or who knows. So I'm going to take this and enter it into Minitab. And usually I like for students to think about how they would enter it in, but here are the times and here are the categories. And at first, maybe we could do is just do the old way of one-way analysis of variance. We could go and we're looking at the time. And it's based on the year. And we could go ahead and do our analysis of variance and find out what our F value and what the P value is to determine whether there's any difference between these. Now, I ought to check the equal variances were assumed for that, but we're just sort of going quickly through this, and you probably should use Levine's method or whatever to make sure that the variances are equal. Let's go to the next question then. We did a one-way analysis. Right? Let's define 3 indicator variables for the 4 years. Remember, we have 4 categories. So I'm going to go ahead and do calc, make indicator variables for the year. And I've got 4 years there. I'm going to let freshman be my reference variable. I'm just going to delete that just so I can keep hold of things. And so then I'm going to do a regression analysis. I've made those now categorical data into continuous predictors, so I don't have to use the categorical predictors below, although I imagine you could. And I go ahead and do that, and I find my regression equation to be 339 minus this. So it appears that freshmen are go the fastest between, I guess they're worried about being late or something, so they seem to have the fastest time. Then we test whether the means were different. I set up my null hypothesis. I would go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to do an overall F test. And so do any of those betas differ? In other words, do any of those betas add utility to the model? And if I did my regression, I get an F value of 1.19 with a P value of 0.353. So I would fail to reject the null hypothesis and say it appears that we have evidence that there is no difference in average time between the 4 classes for the time it takes to get from chapel to the door, and then obtain confidence intervals for each sort of year. So again, I've already run this, so I could do a prediction, and I could say, okay, let's do the freshman first for a confidence interval or prediction interval. Let's do the sophomore second, and let's do the juniors third. I guess, I mean, we'll get the picture after that. Let's make sure we're doing a 95% confidence interval. I could change that by clicking the options button there. I go ahead, and for freshmen, the average time is between, I'm 95% confident the average time is between 253 seconds and 425. For the sophomores, it's between 233 and 432, and the juniors, 176 and 348. So there's a little bit of variation there. And if I wanted to predict an individual freshman, it'd be between 140 seconds and 532. Again, remember the prediction interval for an individual one. If you're an individual sophomore, it'd be between 133 and 531. And if you're an individual junior, it'd be 70 point into 455. So that's just sort of an indication of how you could do the homework. And I'm hoping to see good scores, particularly since I gave you the hardest part in showing how you entered into Minitab, which I really would have wished you would have thought about and presented. But, oh well. Okay. Well, make sure you work on your ethics and read the ethics article by Vardaman and Morris, and we will definitely talk about that Wednesday during our Zoom time.